Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something that's, well, causing a lot of waves internationally. The recent U.S. actions targeting Iran's nuclear facilities.
Right. It's a really volatile situation.
Our mission here is to unpack what happened, what the immediate impacts are, the potential ripple effects, across the board, and what it all means globally. We're drawing on some key analysis and the latest intelligence we have.
And the critical thing to grasp here, I think, is just how fast military action, even targeted strikes like these, can kind of unravel things, especially diplomatic norms and nuclear non-proliferation efforts.
Yeah, it gets complicated fast.
It really does. Things are moving quickly, lots of complex factors playing off each other. So our goal today is to give you a clear, comprehensive picture, help you quickly get a handle on what's crucial here and why it genuinely matters.
Okay, let's dive in then. The U.S. reportedly hit key Iranian nuclear sites. So first off, what was hit and what was the immediate goal?
The main sites mentioned in our sources are Natanz, Fordo, and Isfahan.
And the idea was to damage Iran's nuclear program, right? Hobble it, basically.
That seems to be the stated objective, yes. And looking at the initial damage reports, Natanz apparently took a significant hit.
Especially above ground.
Yes, the above-ground infrastructure there seems quite damaged.
Yeah.
But places like Fordo, well, they're proving really tough nuts to crack.
Because they're built deep underground, like bunkers.
Exactly. The IAEA, that's the UN's nuclear watchdog, they've assessed Fordo as largely unscathed.
Wow.
Yeah. It really highlights how difficult it is to truly, eliminate a program like this once it's fortified, especially deep underground.
So conventional strikes might not be enough for some sites.
Well, some experts have even quietly mentioned needing tactical nukes for those really hardened sites. It shows you the extreme challenge, the kind of measures some analysts are even contemplating just to potentially neutralize them.
Which is a pretty terrifying thought.
It absolutely is. And this resilience, it's not just a technical problem. It really changes the whole strategic calculation for military action, raises the bar for what neutralization even means.
Okay, but Iran isn't exactly known for just taking a hit, right? They've warned about retaliation for a long time.
No, they certainly haven't. And this is where it gets really interesting.
So what are their capabilities now? What can they actually do in response?
Well, the latest intelligence we have from March 2025 suggests Iran's been busy. They've continued to improve the lethality and, crucially, the precision of their missiles and drones, all domestically produced.
Like which ones?
We're talking about systems like the Fate 110. That's a short-range ballistic missile known for being much more accurate now, more maneuverable. And then there's the Shahab 3.
Which has a longer range.
Yes, medium range. It can reach key strategic targets across the region. Think U.S. bases, assets in the Gulf, and even Israel.
And we've already seen some action against Israel.
We have. Israel's reportedly faced 6 waves of ballistic missile attacks from Iran just since June 12th. And there's been damage, casualties reported in Tel Aviv. So this isn't theoretical.
Which means, connecting the dots, U.S. troops stationed in Iraq, Syria, the Gulf, they're right in the potential line of fire.
They absolutely are. And that's before you even factor in Iran's network of proxies.
Right, the proxies. Who are the key players there?
You've got Hezbollah, mainly in Lebanon, and the Houthis in Yemen. And that proxy conflict is definitely active. We've seen significant U.S. and U.K. strikes against Houthi targets recently.
So it's already a hot zone.
Very much so. And look, Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq put out a very clear warning on June 19th. They basically said if the U.S. gets drawn further into this conflict, they'll target U.S. bases.
And they threaten shipping lanes, too.
Yes, specifically threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz and Bab al-Mandab, that other crucial channel near Yemen. This isn't just bluster. They've shown capability in the past. It's a serious threat.
Okay, let's shift to the economy then. Because the Strait of Hormuz, that's a massive choke point for oil, isn't it?
Huge. Absolutely critical. This raises a really important question for, well, everyone listening.
How much oil actually goes through there?
The U.S. Energy Information Administration, the EIA, confirms it's nearly 20 million barrels a day. That's something like 20% of all the oil the world consumes.
20%? Wow. So any disruption there?
Exactly. We're already seeing the impact. Even without a full closure, oil prices jumped right after the strikes. Brent crude went from about $69 to $74 a barrel.
And analysts think it could go higher.
They do. Predictions are out there for Brent hitting maybe $79, West Texas, intermediate $75. That's an 18% and 21% jump just this month.
But what if the strait was actually blocked? What's the nightmare scenario?
Oh, that would be catastrophic. You could see prices spiking to $120, maybe even $150 a barrel. That's an absolute disaster for your wallet and, frankly, for the whole global economy.
Okay, so militarily tense, economically precarious. What about the political and diplomatic side? It feels like any chance of talking things out with Iran is probably, well, toast right now.
You're right. It seems diplomacy has really taken a hit. I mean, even before these strikes, things were tense. The IAEA, centered Iran on June 12th, said their cooperation was less than satisfactory.
Iran's reaction?
They responded by activating more enrichment facilities, pushing back.
And there's this talk about the Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT.
Yes, that's a really significant development. Reports suggest the Iranian parliament is drafting a bill to actually withdraw from the NPT.
And that treaty is basically the foundation of global efforts to stop the spread of nukes, right?
It absolutely is. It's the cornerstone. If Iran pulls out, it's not just symbolic, it signals a direct challenge to the whole global nuclear security structure that's been in place, more or less, since World War II. It could genuinely usher in a new era where those rules are just openly defined.
That completely changes the game.
Completely. And you can bet countries like Russia and China, who have this strategic partnership with Iran, they are watching very closely. This could really shift global power dynamics even more.
So internationally, how are other countries reacting? It sounds like a bit of a mess.
It is complex, yeah.
Yeah?
Responses are varied. Israel is reportedly in full coordination with the U.S., so they're aligned. Some other allies might quietly support the U.S. position too.
But not everyone.
Definitely not. Many countries, particularly in Europe, are really pushing for de-escalation. They're urging restraint.
And the UN, the IAEA.
Well, they're in a tough spot. They're clearly concerned about Iran's lack of cooperation, as we mentioned. But crucially, they've also strongly condemned any military attacks on nuclear facilities.
Or because of the risks.
Yes, exactly. They keep emphasizing the huge risk of radioactive releases if something goes wrong. So they're calling for restraint from all sides. It really shows how fractured the international view is right now.
Okay, let's bring this back home then. To the U.S., what are the potential domestic implications here? Especially if this escalates. Are we looking at another potential long conflict?
That's certainly the fear for some. And the debate is already happening within the U.S. You have figures like Bernie Sanders coming out strongly against the strikes, calling them grossly unconstitutional.
And what about public opinion?
Early polls seem to show pretty strong opposition, particularly among Democrats, to the U.S. getting deeply involved in this conflict.
So politically risky for the administration.
It's a huge gamble for any president, definitely, especially with an election cycle ramping up. Foreign policy like this suddenly becomes front and center, and it could be a really defining issue.
So wrapping this up, as we try to make sense of everything, it feels clear these strikes aren't an endpoint. They're more like the start of another chapter.
I think that's right. Just the beginning of a chain of events.
And the ripple effects, as we've discussed, they could touch everything. Global economy, price of goods for you listening, stability in the Middle East, even the future of trying to prevent nuclear weapons spreading.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
A huge amount to unpack.
Yeah. And honestly, looking at it all, the outlook seems, well, challenging is probably an understatement. It doesn't look pretty.
And maybe here's a final thought for you to chew on, based on our deep dive today. We've talked about the resilience of these hardened nuclear sites, how hard they are to actually destroy. We've talked about Iran openly stating they'll ramp up enrichment, maybe even leave the NPT.
Right.
So considering all that, what does it really suggest about the long-term effectiveness of military strikes? How do they stack up against sustained, maybe difficult, but persistent diplomatic engagement when it comes to actually preventing nuclear proliferation in the long run? Something to really think about as this unfolds.